Away from life on the road, Liam explains that when we come off tour and we were in between albums, he channeled his energy elsewhere. He was always into bikes, but then he started this bike racing team. Totally committed to it. He made a big success of that. He would never brag about it though, but then I would hear that his team had won a trophy or a race. When he'd finished doing that, he started riding the horses. These things were what he needed in between the band working to give him the same rush of adrenaline he got from being on stage. Paul Denning, Keith's best friend in the motorbike world, remembers how Keith had this unmistakable Fagin-like voice, and you'd hear this huge, "Hello, sir," whenever he called. He'd be literally shaking with uncontrolled excitement and energy after getting off his track bike at the end of a riding session. This is what I remember best about his good times with the bikes, the unbridled energy and excitement. He once used the excuse of carrying my bags to Malaysia when I'd broken my leg as a perfectly adequate reason to come out to the GP races and hang out with the team for a week. That week, one of the world's most iconic sportsmen, Valentino Rossi, approached Keith and asked him for a photo. Keith's humble, amused, almost confused reaction at one of his all-time heroes asking him for a photo was fun to watch. I love the fact that Keith always treated people based on what they were as human beings, never based on their fame, status, or wealth. Lissa Green, who Keith knew from the world of horses, explains how he had a special connection with animals. He submerged himself in the riding until he was absolutely capable, and after only a couple of leisurely months with no ferocious crash course training in the saddle, he was able to gallop up the gallops, jumping huge steeplechase fences along the way. How this man could adapt so easily is beyond me. When his brain dreamt, his body somehow caught up and turned it into a reality. I know people who've been riding for decades and still won't leave the ground to jump over a small log. As ever, Keith can. You can't put into words just how much he loved animals. Horses and dogs flocked to him whenever he was around, even ones that were traditionally human shy. He just had a way, and they all understood. He took the time to spend a quiet moment with his horses after each ride, loving them and admiring them. Drummer Leo also saw this empathy with animals. Keith's emotions were felt and expressed in a large way. He felt the world. He didn't actually like people very much at times. He felt and saw them for what they were and had quite a dim view of human behaviour. This is why I think he loved animals so much. Keith's PA, Alex, saw this passion and love for animals up close. He really started getting back into the horses about 4 years ago. He had such a connection with them. When I would go along to the yard and stables with him, you'd see him the way he was with them. There was a pure connection that he could never really seem to get with humans. The way that they looked at each other. He would get up close and be talking to them. He loved his dogs so much. Cyrus is the governor, a German shepherd. That dog would not leave his side. I think you might have several dogs in your life, but you get a once-in-a-lifetime dog. And that was Cyrus. Them two were just made for each other. He loved him more than anything. And it's so hard that they've been left behind. In typical Keef fashion, when it was time to go back on the road with the band, he was full on, 100% on it, as Liam explains. I have never met anyone with so much willpower. If Keith wanted to do something, he fucking did it. He would look at when the tour was coming up and get himself really fit. I'd see him 1 month and he'd be pissed in the pub. And then a month later, he'd be ripped to shreds with no fat on him. He was always ready to represent the band when it was that time. It wasn't just fighting horses for the band. He was always thinking about me. And Liam remembers this story about one particular night behind the drums. At one time, Keith had a studio set up in his house with a drum kit. told me that one evening he was really pissed and he woke up in the middle of the night having just dreamt, fuck, I can play the drums. I have got rhythm. So he gets out of bed, but he fell down the stairs and smashes his head on the wall at the bottom. He got up and went and sat behind the drum kit in the dark. He said he was playing so hard he could feel the sweat pouring down his face. And then he passed out on the couch. He was awoken in the morning by a delivery guy, so he answered the door and invited this guy in for a cup of tea. But the guy looked a bit alarmed and said he had to get off. A while later, Keef went to the toilet, and when he looked in the mirror, he startled himself, because his entire head was plastered in dry, dark red blood from where he smacked his head falling down the stairs. What he thought was sweat was actually blood covering his face. He said he looked so bizarre and just couldn't stop laughing at the fact that the delivery guy was totally freaked out by how he looked, while Keef was unaware and speaking totally normal to him. We would always sit next to each other on the plane whenever we were going to do gigs, and both laughed about that story for our whole journey. Another time, Keith surprised a house visitor in a different way, as Leeroy remembers. He organised the fireworks at my wedding, and as always, he had an outfit for the fireworks duty. He was getting changed in my lounge and was down to just his pants when one of the old ladies at the wedding walked into the room. Striking a pose, Keef said, "Slip a couple of notes in there and I'll dance for you," while pointing to the waistband of his pants. That got her a bit of a blush on, but it was the highlight of her night. A story she would tell forever. That was the effect Keef had on the old and the young. Maxim agrees. Keef brought so much happiness to people, he just had that personality. Kids were happy around him, older people were happy. He just knew how to make everyone happy. Yes, there were moments when he was low and didn't want people around, but when he was feeling good, he was the most generous person you could wish to meet. He would buy things for people, give them time and attention. Just the most generous soul. Keith's PA, Alex, says the same. When I first started working with him, he wasn't what I expected. I'd seen the videos and all the Prodigy side of it, so I expected this really lively character all the time. But what really sticks for me is just how gentle and kind he really was. He was just so giving, not in terms of handing out money and presents, but the care and time that he had for people. I would listen to his problems when he wanted to talk to someone, but he was so good at listening to me. He had such a good way of putting things into perspective. He thought of things in a way that I never had before. He really taught me a lot. Don't get me wrong, there were times where he could be a pain in the arse, and it could be really hard work, but I'd always give him the time of day and take all the bad stuff on the chin. Because I knew that any time he was a pain in the arse, it wasn't about me or anything I was doing. He was just going through some stuff. As a boss, you couldn't ask for anyone better. The band's drummer, Leo, wants people to know that Keith quite liked the idea of being a man of extremes. If somebody else enjoys running, they might go for 3 miles, but he would run 10. If somebody normal has a drink, they have a few pints, but he would have quite a lot more than that. Someone else just has a dog, Keith would have a packet. Keith's legacy is that hundreds of thousands, in fact millions of people have expressed their sense of loss. He has touched so many millions of people around the world. I was thinking today, how many people around the world has this guy impacted on in some way? It's staggering. And that is his legacy. Sharky feels that Keith was a true punk. Complicated, I suppose, but he was a true punk because he had that don't give a fuck attitude. He had that in him. He could let go. There were no boundaries. He had that attitude in him. He had that rock and roll gene in his blood, and nothing was going to stand in his way. He always stood for who he was and what he believed in, and never followed the herd. He was his own individual, yes, mad and highly strung, but also calm and chilled on the other hand. Two extremes. My relationship with Keef has defined me. Being a part of the band and then not being a part of the band has driven me through my adult life to succeed and be who I am. It all means so much to me. So his passing is totally devastating. A part of all of us has died. I believe that this has happened for a reason, and it has put us all on a different path. Keith put me on a path 30 years ago, and now he's put me on another one. I really believe that. Heavy G explains, Keith had an addictive personality, that's a given, but I would suggest that he himself was addictive. Sometimes you need a break, and then a little taste of him would have you hooked again and you'd be reeled back in. Sometimes you'd overindulge and it would take you a month to recover from it. And like all the best drugs, there was good and bad with Keith. Now we all must go to cold turkey, and it's bloody hard. There hasn't been a day in the last month that I haven't cried and laughed, at times simultaneously. I now go to Kaye meetings, Keef Anonymous. Hi, my name's Greg, and it's been nearly a month since I've had any Keef. The boys would like to say a few words to Keef directly to close this part of the service. The band and Keith's personal security and friend, Con Murphy. Never above you, never below you, always by your side. John Fairs, the band's manager. I will remember you for never being seduced by fame and fortune, for performing Run with the Wolves, and giving me both shivers of fear and delight because of the venom in your performance. I remember in Australia just last month, you and the band being the best it had ever been, which makes it seem so unimaginable being here today. I've never known anyone with as much fire and energy as you, or as much exhilarating passion that drove everything in the direction you pushed them. I miss you terribly, John. Leeroy admits, I was always waiting for that call, that he'd have a car crash or a motorbike accident, something like that. He was always going to go out with a bang. I guess he chose his moment. I want people to remember Keith, not just a fire starter. He will always be Keith, or Flinty to me. He's not a song title, just Keith. To me, he was always a superstar before he had the haircut. The hardest thing is that I'm not going to see him again. I'm just blessed to have had him in my life. From the moment I met Keith, he shone. A man of kindness and intelligent in ways that he didn't even see. A visionary. He always had a picture in his head. He was an achiever. And when he set his heart to something, he would do it. An inspiration who helped so many people on this planet on their journey through life. The funniest person I ever met. I will cherish the hours I cried in laughter with him. Our lives are now missing his spark, but he lit up the world and will shine forever. Miss you, my brother. Leeroy. Maxim has these words for you. You were a person who always lit up the room. When you sensed a person feeling uncomfortable, you made them feel comfortable with your wit and your humour. You expressed yourself with music in a way that nobody could deny the feeling of love and joy you shared with us all. You were definitely enigmatic and one of a kind. You lived for excitement and danger on and off the stage. And everything you did was full on, 100%. Performing with you is a feeling I will always cherish. I will miss you, bro. All the low times, the laughter and fun times we had together. But your memory will never die. as it's imprinted in many hearts worldwide, and stories will be told about you forever. Rest in peace, Maxim. And finally, this from Leeroy. Keef was always brutally honest. He wasn't afraid of anything. He said to me once, "When the time comes, I'm not afraid to press the button." Keef, you were a man of the people, a man of integrity, a man of style, originality, and fearless self-expression. The realist motherfucker. An atmosphere hoover when you wanted to be, a gear hoover when you wanted to be. You like to live your life on the razor's edge for the buzz. You were an anti-star, a true pirate, and committed to our cause of shaking people's souls and shaking the foundations of buildings without shoes. My beats will never stop rolling for you. Our bond is so strong and unbreakable. You will never leave my heart, my loyal friend to the end. I miss you. Good night, dear brother. Fly high. Live.
Tranquility of solitude. Get in a cab and traveling on buses. Reading graffiti about state affairs. I say that's entertainment. That's entertainment.
for our next reading, I want to invite John to come out and to share a poem with us this afternoon. John.
This is a poem by our dear friend Beaver McClellan, written the day Keith passed away. Rest in peace. Tears to shed, hearts to mend, more fires to start. Go I must, don't ask me why. The vast turquoise sky with coal-lined clouds calls me to a place of undisturbed peace. My farewell was the many songs we sang together, and the wild dances and places far and near set the heavens alight, and the gods smiled as the swelling sounds of our voices spread in concentric waves into space and light in an indelible legacy, made eternal by love and destiny. We held hands and journeyed, sweet Prodigy. Farewell for now, my brothers. Raise your heads and lift your hearts, and stamp your feet. Play on.
In the weeks since the tragic news broke that Keith had died, there have been many words, feelings, emotions, images. Today, we have been holding all those together through this funeral, a real celebration of Keith's life, what a force of nature he was. But in the midst of all that, in the midst of all the noise, it can be good to pause. And so for each of us in here in the church, and for the fans outside, I'd like us in a moment to keep a minute's silence. After that minute, rather than close with formal prayers that won't say what any of us want today, I will close with the words of the Lord's Prayer. It covers it all. And so if anyone in church or listening outside would like to join me as I say them, then they're welcome to do so. But first, let's keep that minute of silence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. As we come to the prayer of commendation, can I ask us all to stand? few moments we will leave the church to, as we heard, Keith's first ever tractability.
There's no leaving at the moment, sweetheart.
A
It's after
private
the church.
service
We
will
need you to
follow
stay here
for
until we
close
say so.
family and friends. We ask that fans observe their wishes in that respect. But today we acknowledge those fans, so many joining us here, and thank them on behalf of Keith's family, friends and the band for the outpouring of love and support that they have shown. I'm not sure Keith was a big fan of school, and I'm certain that my report said on a few occasions could do better. Maybe Keith's also. But one thing I do remember from those science lessons is that energy is never lost. It only changes into something else. Today, we recognise that while we have lost Keith, his energy, his very life force, is not lost. It is in each and every one of you. Do not let that fire go out. Through you, Keith lives forever. A closing blessing as our church service finishes. May the love of God and the peace of the Lord Jesus Christ bless and console each one of you and all who have known and loved Keith this day and forevermore. Amen.
Know what that T represents on those flowers.
Sorry?
Know what that T represents on the flowers.
My phone's running out of battery, I'm going to find out where to meet her.
Okay,
No.